Hey everyone, Tom Seymour here. Part 3 of the $500 feature. This time it's the action film edition. We're going to be looking at a film I created with Mike Garansky and Phil Garrett. This is basically a $12,000 action film shot in about 12 days. This was a successful film. It was sold to York Entertainment. We signed a deal with them. It was in every Hollywood video and movie gallery, and it was on the earliest version of Netflix. So for a no-budget film, it was a pretty big success, and it was actually the first success I had, because the previous one, Everything Moves Alone, which was a comedic drama, which I'll talk about at some point, did not perform that well. So keep in mind, this was a $12,000 film, but we bought the camera, which was a $3,000 Panasonic camera. It was a 24-frame digital camera. At the time, that was kind of a big deal. So this film came out in 2005. You might be saying, okay, why do I care about a film that was made in 2005? Well, technically, it's an action film. It's a no-budget action film. We basically planned out some stuff. Oddly enough, going to film festivals and talking to people and meeting people and doing workshops and stuff like that is a really great thing. We went to the Bare Bones Film Festival with our first film, Everything Moves Alone, and there was an action choreographer there. And the action choreographer taught us how to map out fight scenes and how to come up with sets of moves that you can do over and over and over, and it actually looks okay. So I'm not saying we killed it, but it was good enough to sign a deal with. I'm going to be talking about, is it a sellable product a lot? It's going to sound a little corporate, but you kind of have to put that hat on when you're doing no-budget stuff, because it's a harder game to play. It's sort of a silly backyard superhero movie, if you want to call it that. It was funny because one critic said that as sort of backhanded, saying it was a backyard superhero film, but I actually was okay with that, and now I describe it that way. It's a sort of allegorical and mythical, Rye's character was hunting after this murderous priest. It's pretty crazy stuff. But the reason why it sold, I think, is because they could create all this crazy artwork. See, all the characters are dressed up like sort of, Rye is kind of like Guile. My character, he's the brawling priest. He sort of looks like Kano or something from Mortal Kombat. This was also on the heels of the 90-minute 16mm comedic drama we did. It never got sold, so I had a real chip on my shoulder of not being included. Like the New York Times bashed one of our movies, even though something like Film Threat liked it. We were not allowed into the New York film scene, and it really pissed me off. So I was like, well, let's make a trauma-style movie. The Toxic Avenger and stuff like that, sort of the low-rent superhero, if you will. You'll see later there's our 2-story tall wishing well. And that's the centerpiece. This movie was in Spain and Italy. It was called Fountain of Death, which I actually prefer that title. Here it was called Land of College Prophets. My dad and I built this well over the course of, I think, 6 months. And you'll see, we actually dug a hole and we built the whole thing. And it was kind of a centerpiece of the film. Our home base was like my parents' house. And then the college campus was the closest college campus. I worked at the bookstore there, and they let us shoot on campus for free. And then the backyard of my parents' house was a big set piece. But we realized when we built the well, we were thinking maybe we could transport it, but once we did that, we realized we weren't going to be able to move it, so we just kind of addressed the background. This was a local bar. The guy let us shoot in back during the day, because it wasn't busy during the day. This is Tunxus Community College, and that's Carmen Campobianco, who was in a lot of 80s and 90s B movies like Psychos in Love and Galactic Gigolo and Cemetery High, Disconnected. So he was sort of our star, if you will. He, at the very least, was in a lot of independent films. We were just getting started, and Carmen had been acting in them for a while. It was great to have him in the film. They let us shoot in a classroom. We were able to just kind of go in and use it. It was kind of a headache to try to get permission. This was shot in Central Connecticut. Okay, so you might be saying, okay, how did you shoot this film in 12 days? Well, the first rule is they're really long days. So you're doing 12-hour days. You're shooting in the morning and then all through the night, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. kind of thing. It's basically a 12-hour shooting day that will ensure that you get enough footage. Again, when you're writing a script, this one was 82 minutes, I think, 80 something minutes. And again, distribution companies, 90 minutes is not the requirement. Don't listen to anyone who says that. That's more of a theatrical standard, and that doesn't really hold up anymore because there's a ton of theatrical movies that were 80 minutes. Most animated features are about 80 minutes. Some of my favorite movies, Phone Booth, Boris Karloff, Frankenstein, that was only 70-something minutes. Bucket of Blood, I think, was Roger Corman. Anyway, there's hundreds of feature-length films that are like, 70-something, 80-something minutes, Like I said, you get into the realms of sellability, but that's less of a problem these days. And I've sold many films over the years, or, signed on to distribution contracts, and the only requirements I ever saw was an 80-minute minimum. A lot of the times longer is not better. This is Dick Bowen. He was also in Exorcism of Fleete Marish, which was part 1 and 2 of the series. Okay, the other thing about so extras, these are just people from the cast and crew that we pulled. That's Junior Mr. Massachusetts. I think his name is Paul Decimo. We needed a bodybuilder, and he was interested in acting, so he did that. That's Matt Ford. I went to college with Matt, so he's in all of my movies. So a lot of this functions because it's a group of friends that want to get together and make a movie. In this case, I think it was about 12 days. So imagine you take, like before we did the 11-day shoot, which required 1 week off of work. This is the 12-day shoot, which that is more like, I think like 7 or 8 days off of work. So you take a Monday through Friday off, and then you have to take like a Monday, Tuesday off. So you're shooting the weekend before, the Monday through Friday, then that weekend, then an extra 1 or 2 days. And then usually a month later you're doing like 1 or 2 pickup days, something like that. At some point, probably next, I'll show you London Betty, which was that was a full 14-day shoot, so full 2 weeks. So that's a little harder because now you're getting into a place where it's like, can I take 2 weeks off from work to make a movie? Most people can't do that, which is, I was able to do it. I think I was actually in between jobs when I did that. So that's why I could do it. Maggie Champagne is also in this, and she's obviously from the Amy Schumer show, and she's really hilarious. We've known her for years, so a lot of times she's just kind enough to be part of our films. The attic we lived in, we had an apartment that had a second floor apartment, but there was an attic, so we dressed that up. This was my parents' basement. Yeah, create multiple sets out of the limitations that we had. So this is downtown Southington. We just stole the shot, So basically, it's like you need a central location. So my parents' house had the backyard, which was the well set. It also had the basement, which was part of the college set, and it was part of a bedroom. Then we had, this is where I was living with Phil and a couple other buddies, with Mike too. And we could use the backyard forest as a location, and this interior as the apartment location. And then we had like a bar, and that was basically it. There's not that many locations in this, and they're all really, it was all within a 10-minute drive. So again, limit your locations, and you have to write that way. So when you write your script, you have to think in terms of limiting the amount of locations. Like you can think of, okay, does this character really have to be in this location to deliver this information, or could they be in a similar location? We added these quotes into there. We just thought it was kind of a cool thing to do. I mean, that's really what it came down to. Adding quotes from more illustrious poets and authors make it seem maybe less dumb than it was.